we are hearing a lot of bad news from India. I live in India now. Scary news. And, people are dying due to this pandemic. No hospital bed, sufficient hospital bed or ventilators or oxygen. And we all are under distress now. āPAT kala. So I thought we will begin with a prayer for those who are dead and those who are suffering. So for the dead, we will chant Trayambagam 3 times. And those who are suffering, we will chant the Dhanvantari mantra, 3 rounds. So that's all what we can do for them now, sitting wherever we are. And the frontline workers are, and the ministers and frontline workers and all are busy taking care of this issue. It is not as scary as we think, but it is still sufficiently as scary. Triambagam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarugamiva bandhanat mrityor mukshiyamamrudaad. Om Triambagam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarugamiva bandhanat mrityor mukshiyamamrudaad. Om Triambagam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarugamiva bandhanat mrityor mukshiyamamrudaad. And the next is Dhanvantari mantra for those who are suffering, those who are sick and ill for them. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaraye Amrita Kalashagastaya Sarvamaya Vinashagaya Trailokyanadhaya Shri Mahavishnave Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaraye Amrita Kalashagastaya Sarvamaya Vinashagaya Trailokyanadhaya Shri Mahavishnave Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaraye Amrita Kalashagastaya Sarvamaya Vinashagaya Trailokyanadhaya Shri Mahavishnave Swaha. Vayuranilam amrudamadhedam bhasmantam shariram. O krado smara kradadam smara krado smara kradadam smara. Vayuranilam amrudamadhedam bhasmantam shariram. O krado smara kradadam smara krado smara kradadam smara. Vayuranilam amrudamadhedam bhasmantam shariram. O krado smara kradadam smara krado smara kradadam smara. Hari Om. So today's topic is āPAT dharma. āPAT means in distress. āPAT is distress, crisis, catastrophe, emergency. So what do we do? So our question is, fundamental question is that what should we do? And that question is to be answered from various angles. As it is said, dharma is sukshmatvada, is very, very subtle. Subtle means complex. We have to have all this complexity in our brain as we address a situation. And the situation is constantly changing. In olden days, 50,000 years, the same lifestyle. Then 500 years, then 50 years. Now every 5 minutes things are changed. So we have to be very adept in applying these values. Sensitive to the context. Context sensitivity is very important. Otherwise, we will make a fool of ourselves. We will not create the desired outcome. So context sensitivity, because dharma is not only a worldview, it is a value system, and also it is a way of life. It should be workable. It should be actionable. The value system should be actionable. And we should survive also and flourish. Lot of demands. It is not that one shoe fits all kind of philosophy. You have to customize dharma. That is why we said, so dharma. I'll be talking about it next topic. So dharma has to be context sensitive in its application. For example, one value is ahimsa, we have seen. But ahimsa, you cannot apply it bluntly. Sometimes, suppose you are serving in an army, which is your call of duty. There you have to shoot, to kill. When you shoot a bullet, it has to kill. Otherwise, you will be dismissed from that. You cannot say, I value ahimsa, in my heart it is ahimsa, therefore I got confused, so I wasted a bullet. No, you have to kill when you shoot. Or farming, you may have to kill some pests and then some worms. Possible. You cannot live without. Or in a yajna, in olden days, yaga, where animals are sacrificed. Or if you are living in a cold climate like Tibet or Scandinavia, those countries, then you may have to eat meat. Though eating meat is not dharma, but you have to. These are all conditions where we have to apply the principles with responsibility and practicality. So to telling truth has to be, you cannot be very blunt about that. Satyam vada, priyam vada, hidam vada. You have to speak it in a pleasant way. And in a way that it benefits the other, not hurt the other. If you hurt the other, he is not going to be benefited by your truth saying. It should be said in a way that the other person feels comfortable. You have to create the trust. Then tell the truth. It's not that I just told the truth and he didn't understand me, didn't get me, or she didn't get me. So you have to apply these values with a great responsibility and sensitivity. So that's the caveat there. That is the qualification of truth, how you apply it. That shows you are intelligent. Otherwise, you are a foolish person. As Dalai Lama said, you should be wisely foolish, not foolishly wise. I don't know what he meant by that, but whatever he meant, there is some truth in that. You have to be wisely foolish, not foolishly wise. So this being the situation, I told that this is the values for category breaking world. What I meant by category breaking is, we are no more living in a binary world. It's all gray. The same person can be very bad and very good also. Sometimes bad, sometimes good. Sometimes some situation helps you, sometimes the same situation is harmful to you. So we are living in a very gray world, let me put it that way. Because several values are clashing for our attention. And it's very difficult to determine what should we do in a given situation. Of course, I have given you some values, universal values like ahimsa. And Prakriti, you look into yourself, what are you fit for? And of course, your Prakriti also is flexible. You can educate yourself. We also allowed you to pursue anything you want in life, like money, power, because this Prakriti is very flexible. It is not like the old system where Brahmins are, you are a Brahmin, therefore you pursue only knowledge. You are a Kshatriya, pursue power, or you are a Vaishya, pursue money. We are coming out of that system. So you are allowed to pursue anything. Through trial and error, by competition and collaboration, you will finally discover what's your calling. So that freedom we have. So that is the Prakriti we talked about. Then also in the third talk, we talked about Raja Dharma, that your indebtedness, your responsibilities. You're indebted to family, community, country, the world order and the environment and so on and so forth. But there we introduce the idea of yajna. You give and you receive. Because if you don't receive, then you cannot give. Unless you receive, unless you get something, you cannot keep giving. So that is the law which governs our relationship with the other and the system. That law is to be applied. So when I give something, what do I get back? So that I can give back again. So create a flow of affluence. That also we have seen. So here in this talk, we are trying to see some special situations, crisis situations. That's what we are. That's what I said, category breaking word, thinking out of the box. You may have to think out of the box. And nobody can educate you. People only can make you aware of that. Aware of that. Ability to think out of the box is necessary. So the central problem in the Dharma world, the challenge in the Dharma world view, is the conflict between self-interest, which is called swartha, self-interest, and the interest of the other, and the group, and even the environment. So generally, morality or ethics is understood as other regard, not self-regard. Morality is regarding the other, respecting the other. Suppose you see somebody drowning. You jump into the river or the ocean and try to save him. In the process, you may die. So, ethics, the basic of ethics is regard for the other. And you sacrifice yourself. That is generally the basis of ethics. And then you become a martyr. Then that is the last time you jump into the ocean to save somebody. Isn't it? Isn't it? That doesn't seem that wise. That doesn't seem that wise. So how do you tackle that problem? The problem of self-interest, I have to preserve and secure my interest while I am securing the interest of the other person also. This is the central dilemma in the Dharma worldview. The central dilemma. How do we negotiate this? How do you solve this problem? So, even the self, when we talk about the self from the Vedantic Advaita standpoint, the self also is something given to your care. Your body, mind, ego complex is given to your care. Just as the other person has got a body, mind, ego complex, and the community of these body, mind, ego complexes. So the Vedantic world, because I have in the very beginning said, I am critiquing the Dharma theory from the Advaita standpoint. So when I say myself, I am not just this body, mind, ego complex. This is an instrument given to me to interact with the world. So I have a certain responsibility for this body, mind, ego complex also. So that you will understand in a contemplative state of consciousness, where you understand this body, mind, ego is a given instrument to me. So therefore, I have certain responsibility to myself. I must have self-regard. I cannot just waste this instrument which has been given to me. So I have to use this instrument with responsibility and care. So that's the conflict which I am facing. So how do we, this is called Dharma Sangata in Sanskrit literature. Dharma Sangata. I don't know which way to take. We have to reflect very deeply and let some solution emerge. So one more input is given in this context. So when you face such, in the normal situation, there is no problem. Normal situation, there is no problem. Everything is hunky, donkey, dory, there is no problem. Everybody is playing by the rule, by the playbook. Everybody has a kind of level playing field. The normal situation is okay. It's only in crisis. Our true nature comes out, as somebody said. Don't provoke me further. I'll show you my true nature. The animal in us comes out when in a crisis situation. In a pandemic situation. These are all crises. Or like I say, a place, a village where there is too much rain. Adivrishti, anavrishti. Adivrishti means too much rain, flood. Or no rain. So these kind of situations. Or starvation, let us say. War. Social unrest. Or your wife is asking for a divorce. And you have 2-3 children. Old mother. Sick father. You lost your job. What will you do at that time? You may have to hold her leg and say, please, please, please. Isn't it? So there are such a crisis situation. How do I deal with this? Is the question. So can I play by the playbook? Or do I have to become intuitive in that situation? I look for some out-of-the-box solution to this situation. So sometimes, it's not only sometime these days, it is all the time. All the time it is crisis. It is challenge. Things are changing. Old solution may not work. The way we dealt with our problem may not work now. Of course, I have the grand rules in my mind. What will I do in such situations is the question, because people panic and lose sense of values and scramble for security for themselves and their loved ones. That's what happened. Is it allowed? What should I do? So, the Dharma guideline is for such situation, the best guide is your self-interest. In such a crisis situation, the best guide is your gut, your instinct. That is the best guide. These values may not work. In such crisis situation, your instinct will tell you. Your gut will tell you. Your swartha will. Swartha means your self-interest. So self-interest plays a big role in guiding your life. But also we should know our self-interest will be better served when we take care of the interest of the other, the group. All those things are there. You see, again, a conflict, isn't it? So, but the best guide is your self-interest. What do you feel? What do you feel inside deeply? And there is no time to think like that. That's why it's called self-interest, your instinct. In such situations, for example, the house is on fire. And your child, your wife, and you all are sleeping inside the house. Your self-interest is jump out and get a fire person or fire extinguisher, rather than all of you perishing inside. So in such situations, the Dharma Shastra says, look for your self-interest. What comes to your mind immediately? Your gut. And I am going to expound on this a little bit. What is this thing called self-interest? Your inner guide, your built-in system of survival instinct in you is to be the guide at that time. Thereafter, you can think of dharma, what to do, whom I can save, all those things. But one must survive first. That is why it is said, Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. Sharira is the primary instrument of practicing dharma. If you have a body, how can you practice dharma? Sharira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam. Sarva Dharman Parityajya Sharirameva Abhirakshaye. Give up all other duties and protect your body. Protecting your body, your space, your dignity. Your space is where you can swing your hand, your peripersonal space, that is to be protected. Anybody coming into that space, then the red flag should go up. Without your permission, of course. So therefore, your space, your self-respect is to be maintained. So, sarva dharman parityajya sharirameva abhirashya. Give up all other duties and take care of your interest, yourself. And also it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, idam shariram kaundeya kshetram ityabhiriyade. This body is a temple, veritable temple, or a field. There you have the sense organs and even God lives in you. So Bhagavan says, don't disturb me because I happen to live in you. So from all these standpoints, our physical security, survival, space is very, very important. And if you destroy that, then one cannot practice dharma or think about God or transcendental values and fulfillment and flourish. Nothing is possible. Therefore, the Dharma Shastra introduces this value also, swartham, self-interest. And the modern literature, they talk about enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest. What is enlightened self-interest? When I am taking care of myself, I take care of my family, my community, my country. That also I have to think of. It's a big task, isn't it? But put this value in you, that self-interest, an important pillar of dharma, which is called swartha. Let me give you a story for that. The great sage Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was a sage and a rishi, and as a rishi, he is committed to non-violence. Non-violence means you won't eat meat. You won't kill animals. But he was in a village. These rishis keep wandering from village to village. And he was in a village, there food scarcity, starvation. And then he did not have any food. So he goes to a house to beg, because they used to live on begging. Bhiksha. Bhiksha means what you get out of begging. What the community gives you, because you are thinking of higher values. When you think of higher values, you may not have any time to do farming and all that. So the community has to provide for it. So he went to beg in a house, and that house happened to be a Chandala house. Chandala means one who eat meat, especially dog meat. That means all Koreans are Chandalas, isn't it? They eat dog meat. Or Nagaland people are Chandala, they eat dog meat. And you also eat a hot dog, isn't it? So, a Chandala means who eats cooked dog meat. So he goes there, and Chandala says, "Swami, I have only this cooked meat. Would you like to have a share of that?" Vishwamitra says, "To hell with it, give me that. Give me that dog's meat. Because I am hungry, I have to keep my soul and body together." So he eats that dog's meat. And he satiated. And he drank a glass of water. Then the Chandala, the wife of the Chandala says, Swami, I'm sorry, I have some cooked rice here. Then he said, this is enough for me. This is enough for me. Thank you. And he left. So what is meant is that in such situations, you have to think out of the box. You have to think what is your self-interest. You have to maintain the body. That does not mean it become a habit for you. Because once I ate that, let me continue to do that. Because you served in the army and you are shooting and killing your enemies, and when you come back retired from the army, now you are telling your wife, I feel very restless these days because I have not shot and killed anybody. That should not become your mind. So you have to use this in a very discreet manner, with a great judgment. So when I give you this carte blanche, as they say, this blank check, don't write a big amount on that. When the rishis give you this freedom of self-interest, it should not be used indiscriminately. It should be used only whenever it is necessary and should not become your habit. It should be a standalone response. That's very, very important. Oh, you did that yesterday, why don't you continue to do it today? No, that is what called judgment. That situation, it was okay. Today, it is not okay. So this is, we are giving you, the rishis is giving us a freedom. What I call it, a carte blanche, isn't it? A freedom for you to use your intelligence. So, Vishwamitra story is an example for that you have the freedom to innovatively apply the dictates of dharma. If you don't do that, then you are a foolish, unwise person. Now, when in such a situation, self-interest and the interest of the community or the other and all that, generally, as I told you earlier, the ethics, the law of ethics says you regard for the other, you help the other. That is what generally it is said. So, self-sacrifice is the basis of ethics, generally, but not in extreme situation. Thus, a soldier dying for the country is accepted, isn't it? It's a self-sacrifice. He's dying. His wife become a widow, his children are on the street, but he dies for the country. Or a firefighter sacrificing herself for saving people caught in fire. Allowed. Or let us say a flight crew wait for the last person to be escorted out. By the time the plane caught fire and the crew died. Allowed. Or let us say a frontline hospital staff risk their lives caring for patients. Allowed. Because they are trained for that. That is their calling. And it's not necessary that they will perish in this process, because there are enough measures to save themselves. So therefore, those situations, self-sacrifice, the risk is allowed. Those situations. But the problem here is, what we are grappling with is, this is part of your duty or sadharma, but there is extraordinary situations where we have to think carefully. What are the extraordinary situations? When the other is a serious killer, let us say, a serial killer. What will you do? Or a rapist? Or an armed housebreaker? Or a religious fanatic? A person who is ready to blow the Twin Towers for religious conviction. Or, let's say terrorist, of course, he's a terrorist. or a corporation polluting the rivers and soil for their own short-term profits, without any regard to the other people. In such situations, they are ruthless, irrational, heartless, and unscrupulous. How will you negotiate with such people? Those people are called adharmic people. They don't share your values. They are called mlechas in the Sanskrit literature. They don't share your values. And how do you negotiate with such people? Of course, we have given 4 sama, dana, veda, danda, etc. Talk to them. Or, give them some elements. Okay, pollute, but then do something about that. Or Veda, talk to some of them and bring them to that is called, what I call the willing, the coalition of the willing. Some of them may be willing to share your values. And the last resort, what will you do? Such people, they are ruthless, like a Hitler. Chamberlain tried to negotiate with him, and then what happened? He didn't care for that agreement. So such situations, when you face ruthless, irrational, heartless, and scrupulous, who doesn't share the value system, who refuses to play by the toolkit or playbook, what will you do? So the central question here I am addressing is, how do dharmic people deal with adharmic people? How do inclusivists deal with exclusivists? What will I do in such situation? So that is a central problem. We have to, I hope you share this conflict, the dharma sankata, this conflict we all are sharing. How do you deal with such people? Because they are ruthless, unscrupulous. They have no sensitivity. They don't care for the future, their children, grandchildren. So that is so I define the central problem in āPAT dharma. How do we deal with unscrupulous, adharmic, people who follow adharma? Like Duryodhana said, Janami dharmam, najame pravarti, janami adharmam, najame nivurti, kenabi devena hrudisti dena yatha niyuktosmi tadha karomi. Not that I don't know dharma, but I have a special liking for adharma. Like Hitler. Like a serious killer, like a religious fanatic. He thinks he will get a heaven by blowing others' head, blowing off others' head. He thinks he gets heaven. What will I do with such people? So the question is that now, can you use adharma methods, what is violence, deceit, deception, against adharma people? Okay, let me put it once again. Can dharmic people use temporarily adharma method against adharma people? Of course, there is a lot of ifs and buts here. Who is adharma people? Who will judge? All those things are there. Who will judge that this particular person? Who will judge that Osama bin Laden was adharmic? Who will judge this particular corporation Monsanto is adharmic? Who will judge? This I leave it to you, that you have to judge. Or there should be a community who will discuss and debate and judge. But this possibility is there. Duryodhana was adharmic because who wouldn't allow the Pandavas to survive. They want to complete the destruction of the Pandava culture. So generally we know who are the adharmic people. So the question is that, can dharmic people use adharma Meaning, okay, let me put it in a modern language. Can ethical people use unethical means to confront unethical people? This is the question which we are grappling with in this āPAT dharma discourse. Emergency, crisis situation. We are confronting an enemy who doesn't share any of these values. And should you combat, now the question is, should you combat and defeat adharma with adharma? Or can you combat and defeat adharma with the dharma? That's the question. Should you combat adharma and defeat them by adharma, or can you combat adharma with the dharma? That's the question. Krodhem akrodhena. So some people say, and when an angry person comes towards you, you should not get angry. So let us debate this issue. I hope you understood the problem. How I problematize the issue. How the problem is understood. The challenge is understood. Now there are two views on this. There are two views. One view is adharma against adharma perpetuates adharma. Violence against violence will create a cycle of violence, isn't it? A tooth for a tooth, a limb for a limb philosophy. That seems to be a philosophy of the jungle. You remove one tooth, I remove two of yours, you remove three of mine, and all of us become toothless. Or I break your limb, or you break my limb, and we all become limbless. You pluck one of my eyes and take two of yours, and we become eyeless. So the logic says, if I confront adharma with adharma, not only that there is one adharmi, I also become an adharmi. So you continue the cycle of violence. Revenge. He killed my father, therefore I kill his father. This way, the violence, cycle of violence continues. It's a straight logic. It's a linear logic, I should say. That if you face adharma with adharma, it will only perpetuate adharma. And not only that, that becomes the law of the jungle, and today's oppressed become tomorrow's oppressor. That is what happened in the Soviet Union. They took power, killed the Tsar, the entire family, then they became the oppressor. The Stalin became the Tsar. Isn't it? So, if you compare violence with the violence, you create one more group of violent people, and the saga of violence continues. So, that's a linear logic, which is very clear. So, revenge creates sarvanasham, total destruction. And Mahabharata gives a very interesting story. That Ashwatthama was son of Drona. Drona was killed by deceit. I'll come to that story later. Drona was killed by deceit by the approval of Lord Krishna himself. And Ashwatthama, the son of Drona, he wanted revenge. So after the war is over, and Draupadi and her children and her brothers were resting, sleeping. And Ashwatthama comes. And then he kills all these children. Ruthlessly, brutally. Smash their head, it seems. So at the end of the war, Draupadi was celebrating with her children and all that. After celebration, they were sleeping. Ashwatthama killed all of them. Revenge. And very few people were left at the end of the war. So Draupadi, who wanted revenge in the beginning, that's how the whole war started. Now when Ashwatthama killed her own children in a brutal way, Draupadi said, forgive him. I am tired of this cycle of violence. I have to put an end to this. Save him. Leave him. I no more want revenge. Suddenly, her attitude changed. So therefore, one way of dealing with adharma, you stick to your dharma and suffer in the process. And suffer in the process. As Mahatma Gandhi said, I would rather shed my blood than shedding the blood of the other. You become a martyr for a cause. That is one way of solving the problem. And some of you may choose that way. I would rather die. At the end of it, maybe all good people will die and only bad people will die. As somebody said, the nishkriyatva of the good is more dangerous than the sakriyatva of the bad. It is not the activity of the bad which is the problem. It is the inactivity and the apathy of the good. So one method of addressing this issue, this dilemma, this conflict, is to you become a martyr, like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ became a martyr for the other people. Of course, the religion that grew out of that became more oppressive. I hope I'm not offending anybody's sensitivity. A religion which came out of this self-sacrifice. That is why somebody said Christ was the last Christian. Christ was the last Christian. Because he had a values and he died. And people who built a superstructure on that sacrifice became more oppressive. So one method is, it's for your individual choice. One method is suffer for dharma. As somebody said, philosophy is a preparation for death. Dharmic people will have to suffer. Suffer for the cause. And think that at the end of the day, you will enjoy in heaven or some miracle will happen. Like Harishchandra. Harishchandra in the Mahabharata story suffered for a cause, for truth. And he had to give up everything. He lost everything for truth. Or in the Bible, there is a story of Bob, for love of God, he had to suffer and all that. Harishchandra suffered and then he lost everything and he was working he was a king. Harishchandra was a king. Finally he ended up in a burial ground where he has to burn dead bodies. And his own son's dead body comes. His own son. And he asks, where is the fee? You have to give a fee. So his wife says, I have no money. So he says, I cannot do that. Without a fee, I cannot, because my boss says that. And he cried. I don't know what to do. Then the Lord of Dharma appears and saves the whole situation. A miracle has to happen. And if you have that faith, that I will stick to Dharma, I will undergo the suffering, I am ready to give up everything, some miracle may happen. And in some cases it happens also. Some miracle may happen, that's up to you. That's your discretion. Do you want to follow that path? So there Kshama, Dharmaputra in Mahabharata says, Kshama, patience, forgiveness, toleration, self-sacrifice. You may have to sacrifice your country, your family, your children, your own health. Everything may have to be sacrificed. Maybe you'll get a moksha or a heaven or some miracle will happen. That is one way in addressing this issue. The second way of addressing this issue is krodham. So this is called krodham akrodhena. Meaning, violence is to be tackled with non-violence, with love. Hatredness with love. And do you have the resource, that inner resource to do this? Of course, if you have the higher value, that Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, if you have that idea, maybe you may have the resource to do this. Maybe you have the resource to do it. Okay. I am leaving it as an open-ended question for you to deliberate, you to scratch your head. Because if you read Mahabharata, they don't give you any answer actually, or Dharma Shastras. Dharma Shastra give you the answer, ready-made answers. Those ready-made answers may not be applicable all the time. But Mahabharata is a improvement on these Dharma Shastras. Mahabharata says, in this situation, what will you do? That situation, what will you do? Give you a lot of case studies and leave it to open-ended. And so that, because Mahabharata leaves this question open-ended, every individual can design her or his own response. So it makes us responsible, free, and life becomes more enjoyable. If you have a ready-made solution, life is miserable and boring, isn't it? So that you can innovate, you can be you offer your own solutions. So one method is become a martyr. Socrates did that. Mahatma Gandhi did it. Mahatma Gandhi died for his principles, for himself. The Indian government offered him security. We will give you protection, security, armed protectors. Gandhi said, no, truth will protect. Truth will protect. Truth didn't protect. He was killed. But his spirit survives. His spirit survives. Socrates, his spirit survives. We still think of Socrates. Mahatma Gandhi was adjudged as the greatest person of the 21st century. Not Hitler, not Stalin, not Roosevelt, not anybody else. This frail person weighing 100 pounds with no tooth, toothless mouth. So, as Ishavasya says, Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkinja jagatyam jagatyena tektena bunjidaha ma grudah kasyas vidhanam tena tektena bunjidaha. Therefore, renounce and protect your spirit. That's one method. And the second method is adharma can be used. Adharma. Adharma means what? Deceit, lies, deception, all that can be used in combating adharma. That is the second method. Adharma can be used by dharmic people in combating and defeating adharmic people. Like in the Second World War, America, Britain used force, violence to defeat Hitler and the Nazis and the fascists. And they used all kinds of stratagems, methods for that. Adharma can be used. And as a last resort, please, as a last resort, Britain tried to have a deal with Hitler, but Hitler wouldn't honor that deal. He went for violent means, and finally Hitler was to be subdued. fascism must be subdued by violent means. So, other viewpoint is, dharmic people are free to use adharma in extreme situations. We have seen that. Sama, Dana, Bheda and Danda. Danda is going for the jugular, isn't it? In extreme situations, you are allowed, but don't make it a habit. Therefore, they say, after using force, you have to go through a process of prayaschitta. Prayaschitta means you have to undergo a kind of act of repentance. Prayaschitta, fasting for 10 days, doing some charity, going for a pilgrimage. I did something which I should not have. And also be ready for the consequences. For example, Krishna used deceit in defeating Kauravas in 4 instances. And for that, Krishna has to suffer. Later, Gandhari cursed. So you must be ready for that as a leader, whether it is a family leader or a community leader or a corporate leader or a leader of the country. You may be forced to take certain decision which is against the dharma sometimes. You have to do that. That's part of your duty, responsibility. And suffer the consequence. Next election you may lose, let us say. Putting in a very, very practical sense. Next election you may lose. Or you may be chucked out from your post. And you may be called back later. Or you can start your own company. These are all opportunities for you. So, so prayaschitta is incorporated into this situation. Prayaschitta means expiatory activities. Or doing something like America did prayaschitta, isn't it? After Second World War, Germany was completely ruined. Then America has to send the Marshall Plan, isn't it? It's a prayaschitta. They have a prayaschitta. They have to help Germany, and Germany resurrected from that. The ruination of Second World War. Prayaschitta. Praya chitta. Praya means tapas. Chitta means determination. Prayaschitta. So if you have done something wrong, because of the exigency of the situation, to promote dharma, sometimes you may have to tell a lie to your spouse, isn't it? Sometimes. And when she is calm or he is calm and cool, then you say, sorry, I told you a lie. But at that time, you may have to do that. So, yeah. So, in the Mahabharata war, we find a lot of this kind of adharma was used. Bhishma had a vow that he will not fight with the women and transgender people. And he was fighting, and then Arjuna couldn't cope with the... Bhima was a great warrior, and unfortunately he was on the dharma side. Bhishma admits that I am on the wrong side, but circumstances pushed me there. So Bhishma was fighting, and Krishna brought Shikhandi. Shikhandi is a transgender in front of Bhishma. Fight with her. Bhishma said, no, I will not fight. That my dharma doesn't allow that. At that time, Bhishma dropped his weapon. Arjuna shot and killed him. Adharma, deceit. Similarly, Drona was a terrific fighter. Drishtadyumna cannot do anything. Then Dharmaputra told a lie. Oh, your son died in the battle. And Drona lose any motivation for war. And he drops the weapon, and then he was hit. Deceit, lie. That too by Dharmaputra. It said Dharmaputra's chariot sank on the ground because of this. Otherwise it was floating. Then Karna Karna's chariot plunged into the slush, mud, and she got down to lift the chariot. At that time, Arjuna hits him. It is not that. Because you cannot fight the enemy who has no weapon. Then similarly, Jayadratha. Arjuna takes a vow in the heat of the war that I will kill Jayadratha before the sunset. And then all the people protected Jayadratha, putting him in a very secluded place. So Krishna has to make an artificial sunset. So sunset, Jayadratha comes out. Oh. And then again the clouds move and the sun comes out. So Arjuna hits him. All deceit. So Krishna himself says in the Mahabharata, sometimes in extreme cases, you can use deceit, lie, deception, and all that to win the war. As they said, everything is fair in war and love. War and love. Because the motivation is good. Motivation is to defeat adharma. So which side you take, I leave it to you. If you are Krishna Bhakta, you can take the second path. Sometimes you may have to use adharma temporarily, a standalone adharma, don't make it a habit. Don't make it a habit. Or if you are the Dharmaputra Bhakta or a Gandhi Bhakta, Gandhi also became a terrible failure in life. Because his non-violence didn't help Hindu-Muslim unity or the integration of India. He died as an unhappy person. Unhappy person. So you have to take all this into consideration before you choose this. But these two paths are there in front of us. It is your responsibility to take which path. The first path, of toleration and all, need tremendous spiritual power. Willingness to die. Willingness to sacrifice. Do you have that resource? If you have it, God bless you. If you don't have it, temporarily, you can adopt these means, provided it doesn't become a habit for you. And now, let me end this discussion with a story from Mahabharata. The story of a cat and a mouse. Both of them were caught in a net of a hunter. And they are natural enemies. But in the same situation, same distress situation. Because the hunter comes, they will kill both of them for meat. So now they are sitting and discussing, what should we do? How do we escape from this situation? How can we leverage each other's resources and competence? How do you do that? So the cat said, I can eat you up. I am very hungry. I can eat you up now. At least I can save myself for some more time. The mouse said, please, I have wife and children. They are waiting for me, and please don't do that. Okay, then you have to help me. You have to cut the strings of the net. Cat can do that. Mouse can do that. And if you do that, then both of us can escape from it. And the deal is, I will not eat you. You have to help me come out of this situation. The rat knew, the rat is scared. It knew that this cat may eat him after this. After saving the cat from the net, the first thing cat going to do is to eat him. But then, tulya dukkhidaha, they both are suffering now. The cat has to, the rat, the mouse has to take a risk now. The prisoner's dilemma. As it in the management circle, the prisoner's dilemma. The mouse has to take a risk now, otherwise both of them will suffer. So slowly the mouse cut the strings of the net, but it left one string so that the cat cannot come out completely, and then it cut and then ran. Then the cat chased the mouse. Says, "You saved me. You are my good friend. I will not harm you. Let us have a deal. You are my good friend." You know what the mouse was telling? It's very interesting for us. The mouse says, mouse says, "You are my aham annam. I am food for you. Aham annam. Bhavan bhokta. You are the predator. I am the prey. And you are hungry. And you are always hungry. So I am food for you and you are my eater. How can we be friends?" In that opposite situation, we were friends. We tried to leverage each other's strength. But now that situation is over. Now we come back to our natural state. I am food, you are the eater of the food. So aham annam, bhavan bhokta, durbaloham bhavan bali. I am powerless, you are powerful. Therefore, we are asymmetric strength, power. Natural enemies. We cannot have friendship. You live in your world, I will live in my world. And he says, I also tell you one thing. Nobody is permanently friend of anybody. Today's friend can become tomorrow's enemy. Yesterday's enemy can become today's friend. So leave some room for this situation. Nobody is your. As Churchill said, for a statesman, there is no permanent enemy or permanent friend. There is only self-interest, isn't it? National interest. So the mouse is very wise. Isn't it? Mouse, you use mouse, isn't it? You use mouse to get all the information, isn't it? So the mouse is very wise. It has got all the information. By a click of the mouse, you get all the information. The mouse says, no, there is no permanent enemy, no permanent friend. It is all circumstantial. Circumstance determined. Who is your friend? Who is your enemy? Therefore, not only artha yuktam, your self-interest determines. Kala pariyaya determines. Depending upon the time and the place where you are. There are many factors which determines enmity and friendship. So you have to be very flexible in these matters. Always leave a room for change. Always leave a line of retreat, as we said. So the wise mouse said that. So finally, what the āPAT dharma says, swartha, in such situation, swartha is the best guide. Swartha means your instinct, your gut. Your survival instinct is the best guide for you. Follow that. You will be in the right places. And similarly, jagrada, always be alert. Don't take things for granted. Not in your children, wife and husband, don't take them for granted. You can turn against and fight with them. So, jagrada, be always alert. Then samshaya, have a healthy doubt about everybody. Healthy doubt. Though Bhagavad Gita says samshaya atma vinashati. But even when somebody gives a promise, I will die for you, have a healthy doubt. The person who says, I will die for you, he may kill you later. So these are the things in āPAT dharma. Isn't it? Some of you know that. I die for you, and all that. Later you know how he cheated you, isn't it? That was a camouflage. That was said in the heat of the time. Kala viparya. In time, he may change or she may change. So three things are there. Swartham, jagrada, samshaya. And bala. Bala means keep your soul sharp all the time. Don't let the other person become stronger than you. Then you have to be careful. Because it is not the intent, but the capability which matters. The other person may say, I love you, I love you, I love you. The intent is important, but more than intent, it is the capability for the other to harm you. That's more important. So as Mao said, your intention I appreciate. You want to be friends, you want to show your gratitude, but it's not your intention, but it is your capability. One has to be very, very careful. So 4 principles. Swartha, Jagrada, Samshaya, Bala. So finally, what is your choice? I leave it to you. Krishna's choice is Dharma Danda. It is allowed to use Danda, force, to see it in extreme cases. So with that, I leave it to your discretion, and you discuss it, debate it, and I hope this will show you some light in managing your relationships and your life in critical situations. Otherwise, normal situation, follow the rules. But in such stressful situation, go to your guts and act. And that will be the right path. So, what are the 4 fundamental principles? Samanya Dharma or Sanatana Dharma says Ahimsa. Put it in your value system. Secondly, your Prakriti. What is my Prakriti? Prakriti is a very flexible concept. What is my Prakriti? You have to act accordingly. You have to choose accordingly. Third is Yajna. Yajna means give and take principle, which involves Rana. Rana means your obligations. And third, today is Swartha. Put all of them, and then you have to decide what should you do in a given situation. And that is called your Swadharma. This is my Swadharma, which I will expand in the next talk. So this is a very challenging topic, very interesting, very challenging topic, and discuss among yourself and reflect on that, and that's what your task will be. So next week, Saturday, I'll be talking about Swadharma. Answer to what should I do? What you end up doing is a different case. What you wish to do is something different. You may wish to do something. If I give you a ring, which makes you invisible, then what you do, God alone knows. So what you wish to do, what you should do, what you end up doing, these are the things we will be discussing in the next lecture on Swadharma. Thank you very much. Hari.